My friends, it just keeps happening. Believe it or not, in the month of February 2021, a stunning 6 speedrunners achieved 36 untied world records on one single stage in Perfect Dark, cutting 47 seconds from the game's overall time. Is that not one of the most insane things you've ever heard in all of speedrun history? Indeed, truly remarkable. But how did it happen? How does it work? How was it found? And how might it save time? Well, that's why you're here, my friends, of course. Here's the story of one of the craziest months in Perfect Dark history and the Infiltration hoverbike clip. And if you think you've heard most of this story before, think again, because a lot has happened in even the past 2 weeks on the stage. Plus, we're going to dive more into the various rivalries between these 6 epic speed gamers. And I have an announcement about this channel at the very end of the video, so here we go. But yes, to begin this video, we must give a general overview of the stage. So if you're already familiar with Perfect Dark's Infiltration, you can navigate to the next section of this video using the fun chapter features, or just bop to it at this timestamp. So cheers. Infiltration. As the story goes, you are infiltrating the Area 51 secret base in order to save our Mayan friend Elvis, who will hopefully help us out in an interstellar conflict between humans and the Skedar. Okay, easy enough to follow, right? In simpler terms, get into the base with a few conditions, your objectives. On all 3 difficulties, you must enter this basement area and chuck an explosive on this computer to disable the air intercept radar. On Special and Perfect Agent, you must go to this area to chuck a communications rider device, basically a tracker bug, on this antenna. This leads to perhaps the funniest of all voice lines in Perfect Dark, when Joanna says,
"There's the antenna, but I can't throw a bug that high."
But oh, yes, you can. And finally, on Perfect Agent, you must destroy these 3 interceptor enemy vehicles, which can be a bit of a challenge, especially with this last one flying around, often requiring a very precise rocket shot. Okay, aside from that, once you've completed these objectives, on all the difficulties, the final 2 objectives basically amount to finish the level. One of these is gain access to the hangar lift, which requires you to get a keycard from this bloke, then press B at this switch, and then wait 20 seconds for the hangar doors to cycle open, and then actually enter the hangar. And we'd usually use these 20 seconds to go complete the explosives objective, but even so, we do tend to get back to the hangar well before this objective has completed, so there is some dead time here that there's not much we can do about. Furthermore, the final objective is to make contact with your undercover spy friend, Jonathan, which requires you to strafe through one hangar, take this lift down a level, then strafe through another hangar to the end of the stage. These lifts are very fussy too. They're on timed cycles, which begin as soon as the level's loaded. So depending on the pace of the record you're going for, you need to wait a certain amount of time in the opening cutscene before the beginning of the level. On Special Agent, world record pace, for example, you'd have to wait well over 1 full minute before beginning each attempt at your speedrun, which could fail within seconds. An unpleasant experience for many. And even so, due to frame drops from lag and other random variables, there's no guarantee that the lift will be exactly in the right spot, waiting to take you down as you approach it, even if you time the opening cutscene correctly. So yes, not a level beloved by everyone. A small handful of runners do enjoy waiting out these 1-minute cutscenes, browsing the internet, playing Neopets, chatting with a mate, and then playing out one attempt. But the lengthy cutscene, hangar dead time, and lift trollery have resulted in the infiltration level not being a favorite of many. Wouldn't it be lovely if there was a way to speed this all up? Aha, of course it would be. And that is indeed what was discovered on Perfect Dark's Infiltration stage this lonesome February 2021. In short, the hoverbike moves really fast, and Perfect Dark is very laggy, and as such, it's fairly easy to clip out of bounds with the hoverbike, which can absolutely break the level. We already used the hoverbike to break Crash Site, so it certainly makes you wonder, are there other levels which may be able to be broken as well with the hoverbike? And perhaps there will be, but those stories are yet to be told. So now, back to Infiltration. Obviously with 36 records and counting, I can't get to every single one in a video like this, so what we'll do is tell bits and pieces of the world records with some backstories or focus on the speedrunners themselves who managed to achieve these epic records. And I'll try to focus on one difficulty at a time rather than jumping around back and forth. You'll get the hang of it, so here we go. And right off the bat, we have quite an interesting tale on the Perfect Agent stage. A friendly back and forth between two speedrunners, Eliminator Jr. and Lake Demon. Eliminator Jr. at this time last year was a modestly ranked player, in or around the top 40 on the world rankings, but he's had an incredibly productive year of Perfect Dark speedrunning to the point of closing in on the top 10 and being capable of untied world records, as we'll see in this video. Eliminator Jr. often uses the avatar of Buc-ee's, a famed convenience store and truck stop based out of Texas, though he has no real affiliation with the company. He just likes the store and logo. And I mean, Buc-ee's is an entire rabbit hole of its own to dive into. You know, like, to the non-Americans, have you ever seen so many gas pumps in your life? Like, I literally laughed when I saw this picture of the interior of a Buc-ee's for the first time, as it looks to be the same size as the main terminal of many international airports in Canada. But anyway, I digress. That's Eliminator Jr. Now, Lake Demon, well, he's been speedrunning Perfect Dark for about a decade, though he had about a 4 or 5 year hiatus in there, coming back in 2018 and immediately storming up the rankings well into the top 5. He often represents himself with an avatar of the Japanese goblin mask emoji, which actually depicts a Tengu, a mythological trickster in Japanese folklore. Lake Demon had actually become the third person to tie the record on Perfect Agent, 137, only a couple of weeks earlier, which nicely set the stage for what was about to happen. So once the strategy was sorted out, at least well enough to potentially untie the stage, Eliminator Jr. fired up his console and started playing out some runs. At the same time, Lake Demon also fired up his console and began going for the untied himself. After an hour or two of trial and error, refining the skill involved in hitting the finicky trick of warping out of bounds with the hoverbike, and learning how to move around with the hoverbike once you are out of bounds, Eliminator got a run with some potential. Dismounting the bike, planting the explosives, remounting the bike, entering the hangar, getting out of bounds, we can see Eliminator try to feel his way around the out-of-bounds area until he finds his way to these pipes, which he uses as a guideline to gain entry into the hangar. Once he's in, he dismounts the hoverbike, runs to the pad which loads the end zone, and runs to the end. Bingo bango, 1:36, an untied world record by 1 second. Pretty awesome. But his glory would not be long lasting, as during this run, Lake Demon had also been playing out his own run. These two runs were going on simultaneously, and about 30 seconds later, when Lake Demon entered the lift, he was awarded with the time of 1:33, a newer and even faster 3-second untied world record. Incredibly, this makes Eliminator's 1:36 one of the shortest standing untied world records in the history of Perfect Dark. Quite a distinction. But don't feel too bad for Eliminator, as he definitely reappears later on. If we watch this 1:33, we can see that it's far from optimized. For one, Lake Demon gets this quite egregious stuck on this guard as he's attempting to drive the hoverbike out of this tight bottleneck area. And earlier in the level, he throws a nade to destroy one of the interceptors from this spot, but a much better nade throw, more on your direct line to the rest of the stage, would be sorted out soon thereafter. So naturally, Lake Demon would continue to push the record lower and lower, following this shortly thereafter with a 1:31. However, later that night, in the early hours of February 3rd, we would see the return of a timeless legend, Big Boss Man, who had only recently come back to competitive Perfect Dark play. Towards the end of January, he had actually unhoarded a couple records, ironically Infiltration Agent 110 using the old strategy, and an untied Chicago Special Agent 24. The chat reaction when they realized that Boss had been hoarding these times for a year speaks for itself. So, freshly back in the game, like riding an old motorcycle, or perhaps hoverbike, Boss would dive in there and nab a 1:30, the first one of his 119 career untied world records in Perfect Dark to be live streamed. Because yes, he had also just began live streaming this year as well. And again, we can see the live chat was absolutely thrilled to see it. This was super cool and all, but the time was still far from optimized. The strategy had more to be sorted out, and we can see a pretty huge stuck again here on these guards in that bottleneck area. But that's okay because it wouldn't be Boss's last untied on the stage. It would be Lake Demon's turn again next, however, as the following day he would rack up 127, 126, 125, 124, 123, all untied. That's quite the nice way to boost up your career untied world record count, 5 untieds in a single day, so very nicely done. However, the next improvement would come at the hands of someone yet to be introduced in this video, a speedrunner by the name of BK. BK has quite an interesting speedrunning story, as he began playing in 2018 as the sort of novice newcomer player one might imagine. In fact, he was quite happy when he first made the top 100 in GoldenEye, along with a few other mates, calling their endeavor to rise up the rankings the Century Club, with reaching the top 100 as this kind of ultimate goal for them. That being said, BK, whose name is Carl, felt as though he paled in comparison to another speedrunner of GoldenEye and Perfect Dark with the same name, thus BK would choose to go by the username Bad Carl, implying his skill was not as good. And he was right for a while. However, over the course of the following 2 years, BK rose up the rankings with such incredible fervor and passion that, well, that name was no longer appropriate. It's pretty silly to say someone who is now ranked in the top 3 of Perfect Dark is bad at speedrunning the game. Ergo, he shortened his name to simply BK. BK's first untied world record actually came in March 2020, when he nabbed Infiltration Perfect Agent 137 using the old strategies. And so it would be fitting that he would come along once again and get his second untied, also on Infiltration Perfect Agent, with this very nice 122, a finely executed run. When a new strategy comes out and tons of time is trimmed off a level, it can be hard to know exactly when the record is starting to become decent and optimized. After all, we only have days of experience rather than years or decades to develop and smooth out the records, but this 122 was definitely getting to that point where it was starting to feel quite decent. That is, until Boss gave it another go and decided to take a much riskier line to the hoverbike, which was very difficult to survive since you're way more exposed to the fire of the guards. But of course, Boss being Boss, he would grind this out, take his time save to the bank, and crank out this wonderful, beautiful 1 minute 20 second untied world record. Again, stunning all the onlookers and stream viewers who, after 20 years of seeing Boss's speedruns uploaded online, were finally there to witness an untied world record live in action. Truly stunning. And this would be a very, very good record, to the point where in order to keep telling the story of Infiltration, it's time to move to another difficulty on this stage. So let's talk about Agent, the easiest difficulty. The record here, before the out-of-bounds clip was discovered, was 110, originally set in 2012 and tied by 15 total people. It had become one of Perfect Dark's oldest records, and discussion about whether or not 109 was possible would often settle on maybe or maybe not. We didn't really know for sure. It would have been a great video for a "Is Infiltration 109 possible?" It would have been super tight and probably needed at least one more small time saver to make realistic. With that established, it was uncertain if this out-of-bounds strategy would even save time on Agent, because unlike Perfect and Special Agent, you didn't have to go over to the hoverbike area to complete an objective in the first place. So all this time of strafing over to the hoverbike is kind of a loss. Would the strategy even save enough time to make up for it? And so it wouldn't be until February 5th, 4 days after the first new records were set on Special and Perfect Agent, that the 110 on Agent would finally fall, thanks to this technique of parking the hoverbike in this spot as opposed to near the ladder, and just having generally better out-of-bounds movement into the ending hangar. Zella was able to edge out this 108, a 2-second untied, and a very significant world record in the game for finally breaking that 110 mark. But my friends, who is Zella? Unless you've seen the Perfect Dark Year in Review Speedlore episode, this may be the first time you've heard this speedrunner's name, but I assure you, it is unlikely to be the last. Zella began speedrunning Perfect Dark in, believe it or not, May 2020. Now, most players in their first 9 months of speedrunning a game would be thrilled to be able to play it semi-competently, maybe crack the top 100, but not Zella. You see, Zella is someone whom might only be describable as a generational talent, having again in 9 months achieved 31 world records, 12 of which were untied and counting, and reached the top 10 in Perfect Dark. So yeah, it's perhaps no surprise to see him show up in the gold rush for Infiltration records. However, our favorite truck stop aficionado, Eliminator Jr., wouldn't just let Zella have a free-for-all on multiple untied records, so he too played the stage 2 days later, tying Zella's 108. This was followed shortly thereafter with a new tweak to the ending, where you dismount the hoverbike and land on the railing of this catwalk, so that when you leave the end zone loading pad area once the explosive timer hits 0, you can just jump right off onto the ground and strafe quickly into the end, rather than taking the slightly more roundabout route on top of the catwalk itself. Eliminator would use this to untie the stage with 107. This new rail walking technique was so efficient in fact that it would result in 107 picking up 5 ties over the next 24 hours. Pretty insane for such a short time frame, and really exemplifying the gold rush in action. We can see, however, that on Eliminator's 107 he does get slightly hung up in the tight bottleneck just after getting on the hoverbike, so there was still some potential cleaning up left to do. And the following day, Zella would do just that, getting this run, very clean bottleneck area, and converting the smooth driving, great out of bounds movement, tight rail walking, all the way into a 106. A very, very beautiful run. However, the rivalry remained hot when shortly thereafter, Eliminator also notched his own 106. Later that day, however, the astute gamer Alchemaz was working on yet another new technique, which involved driving the hoverbike all the way into the lower part of the hangar. And after a few forum posts back and forth with Taskmaster Weister, this optimization too was solved and put into use. You see, instead of dismounting the hoverbike and strafing along the rail, you could just stay on the hoverbike, and thanks to the lag of the explosives going off when the timer hits 0, plus switching weapons, you can just warp right through the railing, back onto the hangar floor, and drive right into the ending. It's a bit of a rough landing, as there are 4 guards who are coming out of this door and you often get stuck on them, but if you can get through fairly quickly, this is another little time cut, which Zella used to score this 105. This even newer iteration of the ending would be like sharks to a drop of blood in water, and the speedrunners would gobble it right up, with 5 others tying 105 over the next week or so. However, the 105 madness itself would be put to an end when Eliminator would get this insane ending. Almost looks like he warps the guards at the end with the hoverbike, getting yet another untied 104. And I should mention that obviously since this ending saved time, Eliminator was able to use this hoverbike ending on February 10th to beat bosses untied on Perfect Agent, getting a 119 for himself, setting up the possible untied sweep. And so naturally, it's time to get to Special Agent. So Special Agent was actually the first difficulty to see time record improvements, and the quickest to have time carved right off the stage. It was immediately obvious that this strategy would save time on Special Agent, and it was more enjoyable to play than the more challenging Perfect Agent, so naturally this is where speedrunners flocked right away to play. On February 1st, when the strategy was first figured out, the world record stood at 128, a time first set by Perfect Ace in 2013, and eventually tied by 3 others. But that day, February 1st, Eliminator Jr. would cleanly fly right out of bounds and knock it down to 127. But of course, this was only the beginning. Throughout the day, Eliminator and Lake Demon would trade the record back and forth all the way down to 118, quite a respectable 10 seconds of time trimmed from the stage. Lake Demon would say this about his 118 before powering his console down for a night's rest. Pretty good for the first night, had a 116 pace to the end. Shoutouts to everyone who made this strat possible. So naturally the following day we would see that 116. Well, first a 117 by Big Boss Man to, again, a thrilled Twitch audience, seeing the legendary Speedrunner get another untied world record live on stream, but it didn't last too long as Zella and then Eliminator would both get 116. By February 4th, Eliminator would lower this twice, to 114 and then 113, mostly as a result of getting more comfortable with the strategy and getting cleaner runs with better out-of-bounds movement, slowly grinding towards optimization of the stage. February 5th would see Zella and Lake Demon both get 112, with the main difference being the better hoverbike parking spot when dismounting for the explosives objectives. Lake Demon would cut yet another second the following day, and believe it or not, the record would sit here at 111 for a couple of days, racking up ties from Zella, Eliminator, and BK. However, what occurred next can only be described as one man, Eliminator, being on a mission, and one rival, Zella, matching him step for step. On February 10th, Eliminator used the hoverbike warp through railing ending to untie with 110. A pretty cool milestone since this is what the agent record used to be before the strategy. But this was matched very quickly by Zella. A full day of playing later, and Eliminator would knock this down to 109. Had about 40 110s before this, amazingly. About half I'd say were actually 109 pace though. And we can see that this run was actually a 109.35, even with an ending where he clangs around a bit on the 4 guards fleeing from the final door. So, could 108 be possible? Zella would match this 109 very quickly, and so it's at this point now where all of our timelines begin to sync back up. On February 15th, remember, Eliminator had untied Perfect Agent with 119. He held the Agent untied with 104, and he knew if he could squeeze one more second out of Special Agent, he would join a very small group of Perfect Dark speedrunners as ones who have achieved an untied sweep.
No, dude, why? Why does that always happen? God damn it. Is that still it? Let's go, dude! Let's go! Untied sweep, baby! Woo!
Holy moly, I never imagined I'd have an untied, let alone an untied sweep. Shoutouts to everyone and especially Zella for keeping me going on this level and also not getting this time before me. First untied sweep ever on the Infiltration stage, if what I'm being told is true. And it was true. An amazing job by Eliminator, an amazing feeling to have 3 untieds on all 3 difficulties on a stage. But of course, even he knew this wasn't going to last forever. In fact, it would last about 4 days, because one more legendary speedrunner would get involved in the mix. Elu, perhaps better known for his GoldenEye Aztec records throughout the mid-2000s. Elu is indeed a very accomplished perfect art player as well, and Elu took note of yet another strategy development, albeit quite an inconsistent one. Recall the flurry of 4 guards who get in the way of your hoverbike ending. However, when you double tap B to dismount the hoverbike, interesting things can happen. Sometimes you'll exit to the right, to the left, over the handlebars, and sometimes at the end of Infiltration, if you dismount at just the right time, and the game decides to throw you in just the right spot, it'll dismount you into the level's end zone, ending the level immediately as you double press B. This strategy has come to be known as the insane dismount ending, and Elu would use it to match Eliminator's 104, thus ending the untied sweep.
That was really good. Oh, what? Holy sh**. Oh my god.
Elu's thumbnail in this video is just so good too. And it seemed that was how the story of the new strategy on Infiltration would come to an end. Get a good run, clip out of bounds, get to the end with the hoverbike, and just hope you get the insane dismount ending, which would kind of be annoying, because it's so inconsistent. But of course, speedrunning never ceases to find ways to amaze. And so on February 25th, now more than 3 weeks after the initial discovery, yet one more new thing was found. Elu had been working on a strategy he really believed might take the evolution of Infiltration even one step further, and he finally got to work. You see, if you simply drive to this spot out of bounds, directly above the door at which the level ends, and then shoot towards this guard, he will run confusedly, looking for you, and he'll go to that door and open it himself, thus allowing you to access the unloading zone of the mission, completing it early.
Oh! It was just like my 104. I was like, run was slow. And they're like, what?
This allows you to basically end the mission as soon as possible, rather than having to wait at this spot until the explosive's complete, and then drive to the end. In fact, you don't even need to wait for the explosive timer to go to 0, since this can take place right in the closing cutscene of the level, so long as you remember to watch enough of it. If the level fades out with 2 seconds left on the explosive timer, be sure to just watch at least 2 seconds of cutscene. So this basically removes somewhat of a hard cap on the ending timing of the stage. Using this technique, Elu would nab a 103 on Agent, becoming the 6th speedrunner to score an untied world record on Infiltration in the month of February. Absolutely, truly, and utterly remarkable.
Holy cow. That was insane. Oh, wow. I don't even know what to say.
Eliminator and Zella would tie 103 using this even newer technique in a day or two, but as you can imagine, this saves more than just 1 second, and so Zella scored a 102 untied shortly thereafter. This 102 would go on to be quickly tied, of course, by Eliminator and Elu, the triumphant trio happily exchanging Infiltration agent records back and forth. Elu would have this to say about his 102. I was testing some stuff off stream for 50 minutes and slipped a run. I had some sausage fried with butter and onions and 3 eggs for breakfast. Also 1 mini pizza, and was zipping some energy drink when I hit this run suddenly. Was not anywhere near choking the cinema, by the way. Watched it in full very patiently. So yes, what if you do get the guard to open the door before the explosives timer runs out, but your muscle memory instinctively cuts the cinema early? Well, this is what happens.
Oh, I got it! Oh no! I forgot to watch the cutscene for the explosives! Oh my god! It strikes again!
Dude.
Oh!
Watch all the cutscene. What the
Oh my god. That's the second time I've lost the untied to that. I did it with 102 as well.
But it's okay, because only about an hour or two later, Zella would redeem himself by getting another 101, and this time successfully waiting out the cutscene, completing the run.
Oh, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go.
There we go.
Let's fucking go.
Me.
Me?
We counting like it's preschool up in here.
Zella would also score 107 on Special Agent later that night, using the same ending technique, even though lower is certainly possible. And to be honest, lower will probably be possible for a long time, more so on Special and Perfect Agent, where it's always finicky to optimize all the extra steps, and much easier to pass away on good runs. But hey, we're already getting pretty long here, so I've just got to call it right there. After all, that does take us through the entire history of Infiltration's records from February 1st to February 28th, 2021. An absolutely insane month of speedrunning. And of course, who knows how things will go from here? Will Infiltration continue to become more and more optimized? Will other stages be broken wide open with new strategy developments? Perhaps all of the above is the most likely, as if speedrunning has taught us one thing, it's that only time will reveal all its secrets, waiting to be found in these games. Okay, fine. As one final update into March, I have to share that Zella did in fact get at least a 118 on Perfect Agent, thus completing the untied sweep, something he didn't even realize until a few minutes after getting the run.
Thank you everybody for the congratulations. It's not an untied! Wait, is that an untied? Oh, shit, it is. I thought Randy had PA 118.
No,
But I'm not playing PA!
But I cannot guarantee that's how the records continue to stand to this day, as new improvements might inevitably occur, as they always do in the strange and fascinating world of speedrunning. Truly remarkable, utterly stunning. There, my friends, is the story of the 6 speedrunners who set 36 untitled records on a single stage in the month of February 2021. Amazing job to them, immense congratulations, and a huge congratulations to all the others who got tied records on the stage in that time, and a big shout out to all the speedrun scientists who studied, examined, and figured out all the innovations, secrets, and techniques that made the strategy work. It was truly a team effort, and an example of how the whole working together is greater than the sum of the parts. Beautiful work, everyone. So now's the time for a bit of an announcement. When you clicked this video, you may have noticed that I've changed the name of this channel from Our White Goose to Goose's Gamer Folklore. Fear not, this has been a long time coming, and nothing will change content-wise as far as my videos, but here's why I felt it was time for a change. So this is really just a letter salad. It looks kind of like a word jumble, I've never really liked this username. It was just something I chose in 2012 that was available on Twitch, long before I ever knew that digital content creation would become what I do. A much better name I would later choose for my series documenting the level-by-level history of GoldenEye 007 speedrunning is Speedlore. It's short, memorable, it describes what it is. Speedlore is really short for 2 words: speedrun folklore, right? The history, traditions, and culture of speedrunning. What really makes speedrunning speedrunning. Speedlore. Now, on this channel in particular, I usually tell similar stories about speedrunning, but also sometimes stories about not speedrunning. Mario Party world records, Pokemon Snap high scores, urban legends found in old video games, and so I thought it was fitting to go with gamer folklore on this channel, and so now I have speedrun folklore, or speedlore, and gamer folklore. Like I said, this won't really change my content at all. I've already made many of these kinds of more general gaming sorts of stories alongside many speedrunning stories, and this channel will still share these kinds of stories as told by me. Over the past couple of years, I've really tried to find positive direction in my work and online presence, and decided that I want to make sure that I tell stories that celebrate the amazing achievements of others, elevate the incredible feats and efforts put forward, empathize with the unique journeys of all, motivate those feeling down and lost towards betterment, and inspire others to strive for greatness. And I feel as though this change will really help keep that goal in sight while making the best content I can and just making it more about the stories rather than about myself. After all, it's the achievements of others which really make gaming such an incredible place. And there's nothing I've come to enjoy more than celebrating these obscure and lesser-known stories about the triumphs of a fellow gamer who might not get that recognition or whose story might just fly under the radar otherwise. But yeah, from here and beyond, it's time to make this channel truly about celebrating the amazing stories and feats of other gamers around the world. You know, I've been watching a lot of Jeopardy lately, and one quote that's really stuck with me was what the late, great Alex Trebek said to begin his final week of shows. We're trying to build a kinder, gentler society, and if we all pitch in just a little bit, we're going to get there. So here's to that kinder, gentler society and turning the page on a new chapter, being the best we can be and making videos to celebrate the best in our fellow gamers. So there's that, just explaining the change to you all who have watched and supported me for so long. Thank you all for that, and don't worry, I'm not going anywhere, just making a little change for the better. So with that, a huge thanks for watching and listening this far, and for supporting me and my videos on this channel. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe with notifications on to make sure you don't miss any of my new videos. My next one is pretty insane, so you'll want to make sure to see it. In the meantime, wishing every single one of you health and happiness, stay true my friends, and I'll see you in the next stream or video.